Good morning.
Good evening, and welcome to our first show of Tipsy Casting. I'm Jessica, and this is my co host, Jen, and we're so happy to be here.
Grab your favorite cocktail and join us. Now, what are you drinking there, Jess?
I'm drinking a little bit of spiked coffee this morning. I've spiked it with in the spirit of St. Patrick's Day, Missile Distillery from Connemara, Irish
Mmm,
cream liqueur that was a gift from a lovely actor I met a couple of years ago.
yum.
Yeah,
Yum,
it's
yum.
delicious. I highly recommend it. What about
I
you?
love it. I am drinking a rosé that is actually kind of interesting. It's a blush Pinot Grigio, but I'm just
Hmm.
calling it rosé.
Still tastes like as good.
It is. It's quite refreshing.
Yeah. So, for those of you who know us, thank you so much for tuning in for what promises to be a fun and wild ride. And for those of you who don't know us, thank you for tuning in. And I suppose we should probably introduce ourselves a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Um, this is my wonderful co-host, Jen Presser. She is a globetrotter, wine lover, family lover, animal lover, and one of the many things I think we have in common is our love for Disneyland. Jen has been working in casting since 2008 and has quickly become a force to be reckoned with, and I am so excited to be doing this podcast with her.
Aw, that's amazing. What a great intro. Okay. This is my lovely co-host, Jessica Sherman. I feel like everyone knows you. You are like the epitome of like wonderful up and coming casting directors in our
Oh,
world. And it's really an honor to do this with you. I'm so excited. And I know, yes, we are both Disneyland lovers, but you have a wonderful passion for dogs and rescuing dogs and making sure every animal has a beautiful home to go home to. And I also know you are a amateur baker
oh
who
yes.
makes the most beautiful things, considering I can't bake worth a dime. And I have stories to tell about that. But you create some amazing, beautiful cakes and cookies. So, and then I also know you are very close with your family as well, which is very, very near and dear to my heart. So I think we have a lot in common.
We do. I'm learning more and more about this.
I know. So I think we should tell everybody how we came to do this podcast because I think it's kind of a funny story. Um, so for those who may not know, Jess and I do not it's not like we've been friends for 20 years and came up in the industry together. We just met, a few years ago, and we follow each other on Instagram, and especially over the last year we got a bit more personal and closer. And you came to Nashville where I have a house, and we got to spend a lovely brunch together and hang out. And anyway, on my Instagram account, I do this thing maybe once, maybe every 3 weeks, where I do a tips from casting. And again, they're all very generic and, kind of just things that I get asked a lot. And you had the funniest comment where you're like, you responded to one of my stories. You're like, this LOL thought this said tipsy casting. And there comes our podcast.
Something so
What a great
organic.
name.
I've been thinking about this for a long time in a different forum because I remember on back in the day when God, I didn't even know. I think it was when I was working on Bates Motel. There used to be like a writer's rant um, Twitter account that you would get all these like complaints from writers anonymously that were through Twitter. And I always thought, God, it would be so amazing to be able to share, like lament basically about all of our issues as casting directors anonymously through Twitter. And so I feel
Yeah.
like this is not the anonymous version, but we're going to have a number of stories that we can and maybe cannot share
Yeah.
the ultimate details of everything, but it'll certainly be entertaining.
Yeah. I also think there's a lot we can share, that a
Yeah.
lot of, because casting is notorious for kind of, you know, putting up the curtain and being so, because people are afraid to say stuff. And I think this gives us a great platform to say stuff. And even if we feel maybe uncomfortable with names or whatnot, we can always bleep them out or things so that people understand more of what we do and like all the situations we get put into. And, because I agree, the more I've, gotten deeper and deeper into this industry, people just have no idea what casting does. And
Yeah.
it's kind of shocking. I mean, considering we've given our lives to it and people are like, what do you do? Can you quite explain to me?
And then, honestly, unless you spend a day with us, there's no real way to just explain to somebody what it is that casting does. I mean, it's the broad
I know.
strokes, but like you really don't get an idea.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's always fun. I've personally been doing a lot of generals lately, and every time I go into a story of something happening, they're like, "Really, that happens to you?" So again, I think we can just dive so deep and,
Mm,
like, maybe bring awareness to what we actually do for a living, because it's quite fun. I mean, I've always said we have one of the most fun jobs, I think, on the planet.
yeah. No, it's what keeps me here, honestly. It's
Yeah,
one of those things that, who else gets to do what we get to do?
I know.
So it's really exciting, especially when you get to sort of ham about it with your colleagues and really
Yeah.
know that you're not alone.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So we're really excited to share all the stories with you here. And
Mhm.
but like let's share some more about ourselves.
Okay, okay. Let me ask you a question then, if you don't
Mhm.
mind. So why don't you just give like a brief but like cool, fun intro into like how did you get into casting? Because like I kind of said before, I don't know that much about you. It's not like we've been friends for
Right.
years, and I want to hear all about it.
Um, I feel like I've told the story so many times in different places, so it feels a little dated, but I will say, so the short of it is I used to work at a voiceover agency after I graduated college, and I
Hmm.
really quickly figured out that I hated the agency side of things, but it was my first exposure to working with actors, and that was when I realized that casting was an actual profession, because at the time nobody talked
Mm,
about it.
yeah.
It took me 6 months. So 6 months into the agency, I realized I didn't want to do that anymore. And then I was there for a year and a half trying to make a lateral move into casting, which I learned very quickly is you can't make a lateral move
Hmm.
because we're so specialized. So um, I essentially I did what every actor historically has done of building websites and sending holiday greeting cards or whatever it was. And the last thing in hindsight, I realized that didn't work for me because they probably thought I was an actor trying to break into their offices. But
Yeah.
but the thing that did work for me is I started crashing workshops to meet associates. And I met an
Mm.
associate and he took me under, he's no longer in the business, but he took me under his wing. And anytime he had a short film or a commercial he was casting, he would let me sit in and just, learn by osmosis. And then about, I think a year into working with him on evenings and weekends, whenever he had opportunities, he called me and he said, I have a job potential, send me your resume. And then I was so excited because I was still sitting at the voiceover agency, and I sent it to him, and 15 minutes later he called me back and he said, sorry, they're looking for someone with experience.
Oh,
And I know I was so devastated. So I called my dad, and luckily I'm from Los Angeles, and so my parents are close by. And
yeah.
I basically said, um, I have this opportunity. I don't know how long it'll last, but like if necessary, would you support me for a year? And my parents are not super jazzed that I'm in the entertainment industry still, 13
Same,
years in.
same,
Yeah.
same. Yeah.
And so, which makes the whole other conversation a lot, we'll get there.
Yep,
Um,
yep.
but he said yes, but if it doesn't work in a year, you're going to go to law school. And
Oh,
so
wow.
that was the last thing I would want to do because I don't think I'm a successful personnel. I'm not a personality for a successful lawyer. Nothing puts a fire under your ass like something you don't want to do. And
Yeah.
I quit my full-time job. I volunteered myself as a full-time intern. And thankfully, after 9 days, they hired me as their assistant. And
Oh.
that was for a movie I thought was the remake of Little Darlings. And it was
Mm.
for April Webster and Alyssa Weisberg.
Yeah.
And I learned 2 weeks into that experience that it was not Little Darlings, but it was Super 8. And
Oh.
that was my first job in casting.
Wow. That's so crazy. What a great
Yeah.
first job.
I know it was actually really funny because our we're Ukrainian Jews, and in our
Uh-huh.
family, like Spielberg is basically God. Like that's the
Mm.
equivalency. And so for us, it was, my dad would always be like, and still to this day in a different form, would be like, well, you're not successful until you work with Spielberg. And when I learned that it wasn't Little Darlings, it was because Steven Spielberg walked into the office because he was the executive producer on Super 8. And so it was a real nice conversation to be like, first one out the gate. Got it.
Yeah. I mean, at that point, I feel like your parents have to give it and be like, okay, you're legit. Like,
Trust me, I'm still waiting for that moment.
I hear you. I hear you.
Yeah.
I have a very unique story as well.
Do tell.
Well, I'll
What
just
about you?
yeah,
Give it to me.
I'll just dive in. No, I totally fell into casting. I again, no idea. I've never wanted to be an actor or an agent, and I know that's a way like that a lot of casting directors kind of have gotten into it. And so I was a nursing student my first 2 years of college because I was told in high school by my lovely, high school advisor that working in the entertainment industry was unattainable, not a realistic, career.
And where was this? What
I went to high
area?
school. I went to a boarding high school in Nebraska, a very small town in Nebraska that has like 200 people.
Oh,
So
wow.
I had a very weird high school experience. That's a whole nother story. But yeah, so I remember just like my junior, senior year, she's like, absolutely not. She hated me in general, but like, and it's a long story. But it's just, she's like, find something better. And my grandma was a nurse, and my mom always really wanted one of us to be a nurse. And my sister is a teacher, and my brother at the time was going into working with airplanes and stuff. So I was like, okay, so I'll be a nurse, and I love babies and I love kids. So I was like, I'm going to go be a neonatal nurse. And so the first 2 years of college, I was a nursing student, and I went and shadowed a woman on the labor and delivery ward, and I passed out.
Oh, no.
I couldn't hack it. And even she knew my mom, and she was like, I don't think this is the right path for Jen. Just let her go do what she wants. So I transferred schools to just kind of like a generic school in Denver. And at the time, somebody who was in my public speaking class was a production major, and he was like, there's a production program. And I was like, really? Like, so it is real. Like, it's not crazy. And so I ended up that's when I moved to Nashville, because I happened to be a big country music fan at the time. And I was watching the channel CMT, and they had like a daily countdown. And the one guy who was hosting was like, and our intern put this together. And I was like, ooh, what's an intern? Let me go figure this out. So much to my parents' dismay, I literally packed up my car at 18 and left. I had like no money, and I was like, we're just gonna figure this out.
Wow.
And moved to Nashville, went to school there, did a bunch of internships. Thought I was gonna be a producer. Thought I was like, that's the track I want to go. And so literally 2 weeks before I graduated college, there was a movie shooting in town. And a friend of mine who I had met on a commercial shoot was like, hey, you should send in your resume. It's a huge thing. Like, this doesn't come to Nashville very much. And so I sent in my resume. And on the same day, I had an interview for a producer's assistant and a casting assistant. And I remember being like, I want this producer job so bad. Like, this would be my dream. And this is what is meant to be. And again, I was like, I don't even know what casting does. Like, there's no way I'm getting that job. And so I went in and did both interviews, and I got the casting job.
Oh, my goodness.
And it was at a time in the South where the local casting directors also had to do extras. And the movie was, wait for it, Hannah Montana, the movie.
My goodness. That's amazing.
So yeah, so I started out kind of in their extras, and I did really good. And they had a couple other assistants who, they were great people, but just not as fast as me or like getting things done. So and we had 2 casting directors on that movie, and they just both took me under their wing, because they're like, I think you have potential in this. And I was like, whatever. And kind of bounced around, kept doing some PAing, or, did wardrobe on a short thing. And because I kept like being like, I just don't know what casting is. Like, why would I go and like pin my hopes and dreams on a career that I don't even know what it is?
Mm-hmm.
And I just kept coming back to it. And it was before the South is what it is today. So I lived out of my car for 4 years. I worked in Mississippi, New Orleans, Atlanta, North Carolina, St. Louis, Detroit, went to Omaha for a little bit. I even moved to New York for a short minute to do a movie. And yeah. And so then I just kept coming back, and finally I was like, all right, I accept it. I'm supposed to be here. I'm good at it. I'll take it.
Oh my God, that's amazing. Yeah, I think it's definitely one of those things where you realize like only in your, late teens, early 20s can you really sustain a life like that.
Yeah.
And this is not remotely close, but I lived in Santa Clarita and I worked in Santa Monica for 4.5 years, and doing that commute, like, it's like living in my car in a different way where you just stack
Yeah.
your entire day, or you'd always be on the road in some capacity.
Mm-hmm.
I could
Yep.
never do that now.
Oh
Yeah.
man, it's so funny because I actually didn't think I could until, for anybody who doesn't know or follow me or know me, I just moved to London. And so, I mean, I gave up everything and I have 3 suitcases of things. That's my
Wow.
entire, outside of my house that I own, it's like the entire, like
Your
all of my
material
world
possessions.
belongings. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of shocking when you're sitting in the airport looking at a cart being like, this is all I own in this world. So
It's got to be freeing though, like that, like, something that's not anchoring you down in a way that you can explore all these different
hmm
options. Like, I
yeah.
am so impressed and jealous of you, that
Aw.
you just did it. And you've done it a number of times now, just to hear your
Yeah.
stories. Like, that's something that I always have wanted to do and have never done.
Aw. Well, thank you. And I'm
Yeah.
always a big encourager. It'll come for you one day. I think everybody has one big like risk they take in life, no matter what, even the
Yeah.
most conservative people. But yeah, it's been a road. It's been a road.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
tell me, how long ago did you like go, quote unquote, go out on your own?
I keep having to look this up because I feel like time passes in such a different space these days. But 7 years ago, officially.
Mm.
Yeah, it was when we
Wow.
were. So I worked for April. I keep thinking it was 8 years that I worked for April, but I did the math and it's wrong.
Oh
It's
no.
6 years that I worked for April. And then we were finishing Bates Motel and the Strain that I was running point on, and the series were ending sort of on their
hmm
own time. So it
hmm
just felt like the right time to spread my wings.
Oh, that's amazing. And then like
Yeah.
so how long would that have been now since you've had your own company?
It's the 7 years. Yeah.
Oh, 7 years. That's what you
Yeah.
said. You're with April
For
for
6.
six.
Yeah.
Six
So
and then 7. So you've outpassed your
it's
your
crazy.
associate time. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and I was on an expedited track with her because she's always doing so many projects that,
hmm
I was thrown into the deep end, and I got to do so many things that maybe an assistant associate weren't able to do in sort of a normal
Yeah.
track. So I think
Yeah.
I was with her as an assistant for 3 years, and then was her associate for 2.5 years, and then became
hmm
her co-casting director.
Oh,
I want
amazing.
to say that's right. 5. No, that's wrong too, because that's 5, 6 years. So maybe it's 2, and then I was her co-casting director for the last 2. That sounds right.
Wow. That's
Um,
amazing.
yeah, the math
And
works
then
on
we
this
do
one.
have kind of a sliding doors moment. I think we found out that, remember, I think when you were at April's, you we when I was at Sheila Jaffe's at the time, and
Yes.
we were doing a Civil War pilot called Point of Honor, and Carlton Cuse was producing, who I know April works with a lot, and then Randall Wallace was directing. And we did all our callbacks at your office, and somehow
We
you and
did
I
not
never
meet.
met. Because I was at every callback and you were there, and I'm
Oh,
like, how did
yeah.
this happen?
And the craziest part is in that office. It was a beautiful office in Sherman Oaks, and in
Yeah.
that office, it was every office was floor to ceiling windows as part
hmm
of the. So the fact that I did it, I mean, maybe it's the recall of because we didn't know each other
Yeah.
that it didn't sort of resonate. But you would think, as like two professionals, that our whole business can
Yeah.
hinges on recognizing faces, we would at
Yeah.
least have that recall.
Had some kind of moment.
Yeah,
Nope.
that's so funny.
Oh, it was
Yeah.
such a crazy time too, because it was, yeah, I just started with Sheila's office. I think I'd done one project with her before that.
Yeah, and that
Before
was
we
like an
joined in.
extensive process. I feel like you guys were at the office for a long time, I
Yeah,
think.
we were there because it was oh gosh, we did like pre-read again. Everything was in person at the time. So it's like we
Yeah.
did all our pre-reads, and then we would have, I think, like 6-hour callbacks because we all had, it was mainly because we had to go to April's office
Yeah.
and so we had to pack up all our stuff, bring it over, get it all set up and everything. But
Yeah. And because
yeah, so we're like, we're
Carlton
gonna
was
make this
working
work.
on 3 other shows at the time. So it
Yeah.
was I imagine it was managing his time as well to make sure you
Yes.
had what you
Yeah.
needed. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a crazy story.
Yeah. That's so funny. Yeah, speaking of crazy stories,
Yeah.
what are some of your other crazy stories?
Oh gosh. Okay. So my favorite one to tell, and I tell this in all my classes, because here's the thing I think people sometimes forget about casting is that like especially even maybe actors are sometimes like we are on the like we're not just like robots on the
Yeah.
other side of the camera. Like so many things and so many people get thrown at us that you're just one is my favorite part of the job because we meet so many different peoples from all walks of life and from all gamuts. But um some of the time it's so hard to be like on the other side of the camera and not react. And so I was doing when I was with Kathy, we did the two Bad Moms movies, Bad Moms and then A Bad Moms Christmas.
Mm.
And I am a huge lover of all raunchy R-rated comedies. And the directors on this were two of my favorites that I think I've ever worked with, some of the most fun sessions. But we literally, so there in the second movie, there's a stripper role that eventually we cast Justin Hartley in. And it was so fun because one, we got to bring in like every big name guy, good looking guy. And that's like the dream for us. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, please God, give me all the sexy men take, acting as a stripper today. Like what a great job. But I'll never forget because like, again, you just never know what goes on in people's minds. So in some of those sessions, like some guys would literally, because there was like in the scene notes, it was like, he takes his pants off because he was getting his balls waxed in the scene and they were doing this. And we didn't need, I didn't think we needed to say, don't take your clothes off. Like
Yeah.
that's against SAG rules. And so many guys took their pants off. And I just remember being like, what are you doing? Stop.
Oh my
Stop
God.
recording. We got to delete that. I can get sued.
Oh my
And then
God.
one guy like whips out a dildo, like
Oh.
pretending.
That is definitely way more of a crazy story than
Oh, I
my
have so many.
goodness.
I mean, it's like, it's just so, and I love it. I mean, it's one of those things where I'm like, good for you for going for it. But also, like, there is this one guy who is doing the scene who, like, he rips his pants, he had like the tearaway pants,
Yeah.
rips his pants off, messes up the scene. And so then he whips it again. And this time I was like, oh, don't worry about, you don't need to take your pants off. You can just leave them on. We'll get that, And he's like, nope, I've already committed.
Oh my God, that's so funny.
Yeah.
Was he able to get it done in the second take?
No. I remember just thinking, just make this end.
Oh my goodness.
Because at that point we can't even send it, and we know we can't send it.
Yeah.
It's against every rule imaginable.
Yeah.
And I kept trying it, and he just was like, nope, I've committed to it, and whatever. And I just was like, and at the end, I think I was like, we got it, we're good.
That's a perfect example of when someone commits to a sort of like a prop of it going, of it backfiring. Because it's like, that was probably the action of doing it was the thing that distracted him the most from being able to complete it. But wow, I appreciate his commitment.
If you can imagine like just being in a room with two casting people. I can't remember if my boss was in the room or if our assistant was at the time. Yeah. But like literally it's just us and him in his underwear at that point. And you're just like, this is so awkward and weird. And I've asked him to put his pants on and he hasn't. And you're just like,
what do we do?
You're trying not to make it awkward because you're like, I want you to succeed. I want you to give me the best read as you can. But you're just sitting there like, one, don't laugh. And please just don't look like you're going to die. Like, please just. Like,
oh my God. That's a good one.
Yeah. What about you?
I'm like, while you're telling the story, I'm thinking, what do I have that will match that? My goodness. I don't know. I feel like most of it, because I have some serious actor crushes in the sense of like, talent crushes that you just get, this is when I was an associate. We were working on Star Wars and on The Force Awakens, and I'm obsessed, and I don't mind saying it because I think he's so incredibly talented.
I was going to ask.
Pablo Schreiber. I love him. Like,
Oh, he's
talk
so
about a
handsome.
chameleon. He's so talented. And
Yeah.
he came in for Star Wars. And, you know, I think there's a set of nerves that every actor experiences when you come in for the franchise that is Star Wars.
Yeah.
And he came in and I was more nervous than he was, just to give you a sense. And, you know, we were miking everybody up, so the sound was a bit more immediate. And he's like 6'5". He's a tall man.
Wow.
And so
Wow.
I was putting the microphone up on him, staring up at him from below. And I was like, I'm pretty sure I was shaking on the inside, where I just told him, I was like, I'm such a fan of your work. And I was like, now looking back at it, I'm not embarrassed, but I'm also a little embarrassed.
Yeah.
But
I think you need a redo.
Yeah. But I've cast him since, and I don't know
Oh,
if that he
good.
knows that it's the same
Yeah.
person. But
Mm.
but it was very funny, and like I've seen his slate since then,
Yeah.
and I've watched
Mhm.
it back, and I definitely gave him a pep in his step when he was doing his slates and profiles. I'm just gonna
Yeah.
say. But it was
Oh, I
really,
love it.
it's like one story that I just will hold on forever because it's so ridiculous. And
Yeah.
but that's the thing. I think nobody thinks about casting, that we get starstruck in the most weird ways. That it's not the
Yeah.
obvious actors that we're like, oh my
Yeah.
God, Tom Cruise
Yeah.
is there. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I remember, you know, it was so funny on the Bad Moms movie. Because again, we had like kind of every late 30s, early 40s good looking guy come in, and Scott Foley came in.
Ugh,
And one, I was a huge Felicity person, but then
yes.
also our directors' wives were. So it was hilarious because they were nervous on their wives' behalf, because they had told their wives ahead of time that he
Oh my
was coming in.
goodness.
And I was just so funny because they were like, Jen, tell us when he's coming, because we got it. We have to pass along messages from our wives. Like, they're so excited.
That is amazing.
And it is like, I just think, I know it's funny because it's like, I was fortunate enough to work with George Clooney once and got to meet him and everything. And to be fair, he's one of the nicest humans I think I've ever met in my life. But again, he's a bit older than me, you know, and while it was very exciting, it's not like I was like, oh my gosh, like, you know, but I know there are certain times where I'm like, oh, I've just like looked up to this actor for so long,
Yeah.
but I love their body of work. And then you do kind of get that, like, because I think there's this sense of like, we got to be professional, but we
Right.
also want to be like, we love your work. How do you say that without sounding like, I love you?
I can't tell you how, because I didn't sound like that. Oh my goodness.
Oh man. Is there anyone out there at this moment that you're just like, if I met him or
Oh,
her, I
yeah.
mean, you know, that you're just like, that's who I'm digging right now.
I think for many reasons, I'm obsessed with Bryce Dallas Howard.
I worked with her.
Really?
Yeah, I did The Help. That's where I did, and I was
yes.
local casting, so I was on set with them.
Oh, that's amazing. Like I feel like she's probably a great person to work with as a director.
Mhm.
Like I think what she's done is really incredible, and how she sort of transformed herself on both sides of it. But I really like her. And then who am I trying to think of, like the younger? Well, obviously Pedro Pascal, but that
He
would
was
be
in my head. That's
yeah.
gross. Like,
I'm gonna steal that from you. Yeah, I feel like everybody that is just in his presence just becomes like putty.
yeah, yeah. I even, you know, it's funny is like, you know, Instagram does the reels or whatever, and sometimes I get sucked in and I'm watching them. And he did a lie detector test. I think it was with Vanity Fair.
Yeah.
Where they ask him if he's a heartthrob, and he's like, no. And they're like, you're lying. I was like,
He knows.
He knows. Way to try to be humble, buddy.
That's really funny. I'm like Paul Mescal for me, I think was of like The Rising, and Daryl McCormack. I love the Irish. It's a real gift and problem because I have no Irish roots. But those two of like The Rising bunch, when I saw Normal People, I was just like this of before everyone started going crazy and you know, he had the nominations and the wins and stuff like that. I literally I told my friend Rachel, I was like, he's going to get nominated for these particular episodes, like blown away. And then sure enough, he got his nominations. And I feel like, you know, I can continue my casting career.
I just saw him in London doing a
Really?
Streetcar Named Desire. Yeah, in January.
Oh, I'd
It
love to
was he
see
was
that.
so good. I mean, it was such a different idea to make that cast younger.
Mm,
And to be fair, the two women opposite him were phenomenal. But it was fun to see him, like, because it was literally maybe 5 rows in the round.
wow.
So it's like you are in it, and you were
Yeah.
like right, like he kept running by me, because he was in and out, and
Yeah.
he's phenomenal. He's a really, really talented
But
guy.
that's where he started it is on stage. Like I was asking,
Mm,
I don't know if you know Emma Gunnery. She's a Irish casting director in Dublin, and
mm,
I had talked about when Normal People first came out. I had asked her like, "Do you know who he is? Is he a known entity?" And she said that everybody's been trying to cast him and stuff, but his place is on stage. Like that's where how
yeah.
he became known within the
Good
community.
for him.
So
That's
he
so cool.
broke
What's so
out.
fun is I have to admit, so I've been in London since January, and the talent over here is just very different. Coming from my entire career being in the States and especially in LA, it's like it, dealing with actors who come from maybe a bit more of like the stage, theater school background
Mhm.
has been fascinating. And it is really cool to kind of see these, up and coming movements. And I think a lot of the, kind of rising stars, as I think you call them, are coming from over here and in, Ireland and whatnot. And it's just really, it's fun to kind of see this whole group of people
Yeah.
kind of rising, which is cool. I love Daryl McCormick too, by the way.
Yeah. I think honestly it's been such an interesting the more international actors that I meet, the more that I feel like it solidifies the energy. Because
Hmm.
I used to go to this film festival called Subtitle that was in Kilkenny in Ireland. And
Mm.
it was such a beautiful experience because you would go for 5 days, you watch movies in this tiny little town, and you drink the entire, like, I feel like
Yeah.
they're known for having more pubs per capita than people, something like
Yeah.
that. And so they would make theaters out of the back of pubs, and you would go watch a movie, and then you'd have a drink, and then everybody's there, the actors, the casting directors that are coming to it was cater made for casting. And then you would have these 3 days of sort of general speed dating,
Hmm.
where you would meet the actors from the movies, and it was the most amazing thing because it was such a spotlight on the energy of the actors out there is more like, I'm doing cool things, you're doing cool things, and maybe one day we'll do cool things together. And there was no
Yeah.
pressure, and I find that more and more as I meet more actors from abroad in LA
Hmm.
on generals. It's
Yeah.
it's there's such an ease about it, and there's
Hmm.
no expectation, which I think is just so beautiful. And so I
It
think that's
is.
that's something that when they're immersed in their own art and it's about the art and
Hmm.
not about the job, is
Hmm.
it's so striking.
Yeah. Yeah. It is. And it's really kind of again, just kind of being immersed in it at this moment. It's kind of fascinating to like chat to all these people because there's such a underlying passion that I think that contributes to like them not worrying so much about if they don't get it, because like at the base of it, they care about is the art. And
Hmm.
so they're like, if I don't get this role, then it wasn't meant to be, because somebody else will get it who it was meant for. You know what I mean? And
Hmm.
this is the first time, like I'll go into generals and they're like, hey, my buddy might be really good for you to meet, or this girl is
Yeah.
really like up and coming, you should check her out. And like the support amongst actors is really quite fascinating. Like I've gotten so many recommendations from actors for other actors, and I'm like,
I
wow, that's
love
really
that.
cool. Yeah, it's a very very I keep calling it a community more than an industry. Like people really care and like want to see each other succeed, which has been a bit refreshing.
Oh, I love that. What a nice way
Yeah.
to start a new journey for you.
I know, right?
Oh, well, let's also talk personal. How is the adjustment?
It's great. I will say, like, I have been so grateful in I know a lot of people struggled, and I'll add my name to the list of struggling with 2022. It was not my best year. I had a lot of
Hmm.
personal hits and blows, and so this year was kind of really, I mean, I don't know how much more you can say I've turned the page when literally I got on a flight on January 1st and like moved to a new country and was like, this is me starting over again, like,
Yeah.
And so I just needed things to go a bit better this year, feel, a bit more in control. And to be honest, people in the UK are so welcoming and so kind. The industry's phenomenal. It's growing day by day. It's been, again, everyone's just so nice. Like, I was a bit worried because the Brits have a bit of a reputation for being maybe cold or standoffish. And I put myself in the mindset where I'm like, I'm just gonna go there and I'm gonna like say hi to anybody. I'm gonna say hi to whoever I meet, like whether I'm out and about or if I'm at a show or at an agency meeting or something. I just want to make sure I am putting myself out there so that I can try to meet as many people as possible. And everyone's been so lovely and so kind. And the funny thing is like the only thing I'm struggling with are like the basic necessities of life, which is hilarious to me because like career wise, I'm like, yeah, great, it's going super well. But I was like, to actually move to a different country is very difficult in terms of like I just got a bank account yesterday.
Oh my goodness. Yeah,
It's
you don't
taken me
think
two
about
and a
those
half
things.
months. Yep. I've had a bank account since I was 13, and to open one in the UK is extremely difficult. And I was like, I thought like as long as I had my visa and my permit, residence permit and everything, I took it to them. And they're like, nope, you got to prove all these other things. And so I finally, 2.5 months later, got a bank account.
Oh my goodness. Wild. The things you
Yeah,
don't think
yeah.
about.
Yeah. So it's going really well. And again, it's just, and I love Europe. Like, it's so fun to like know that if I wanted to go to Paris, it's just a 2-hour train ride or,
Mm.
Portugal is like a 45-minute flight. It's, I'm just excited to like, once I promised myself though, I'm doing really good self-control,
Mhm.
that I will not go into travel. Like I have to get settled here and like
Yeah.
find a flat and,
Yeah. Oh,
and
that's
then I can go
hard.
travel.
Line or put the ducks in a row first.
Yes,
Oh
yes. How about
man.
you? How's LA these days? How's
It's
2023 treating you?
uh, I think personally it's fine. It's sort of status quo. I was the same that 22 was a very challenging year, unexpectedly so, because
Hmm.
21 was so amazing. And
Yeah.
so this year, you really you took control of it and you did
Hmm.
it. And this year I was hoping that 23 would have like a bang start, but it's professionally it's really slow because of the looming writer strike, and everything
Hmm.
is just everybody's just sitting and waiting to see what happens. So
Yeah.
there's a bit of that, but um, I am fostering a new pup in addition to mine, and so I'm
Yay.
like I have someone very sweet and very cute snuggling with me all the time, which is lovely. Because
Yay.
my dog, she's wonderful, but she loves on her own terms, so she's not a snuggler.
Mm.
But but yeah, so it's like rewarding in different ways this year as a start, and I think we're getting an early start to plan Cause for Entertainment, which is my nonprofit,
Yeah.
and so I'm just trying to stay as occupied as possible,
Hmm.
and
So
also
now
yeah.
I was gonna say, I think, didn't you used to, because I think this was before we met, you used to do in person like fundraising
Oh
for
yeah,
a
I
cause for
mean we're
entertainment. Is that
going.
going back?
Yes, this year will be the first year back, which is why I'm starting to plan now. But we only stopped doing it in person was because of the pandemic.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
but I'm really excited to get back in person, and we're going to have, so our
Yay.
main beneficiary is this woman named Shay Sharp. She runs her own nonprofit called Shay Sharp's Pink Wishes out of
Okay.
Maryland, and she's
Hmm.
amazing. And so she's going to fly out again. She used to fly out every year and come to the event, and I'm
Wow.
just really excited to get people in person again, and
Yeah.
there's something
And to be
really.
fair, I've seen what you give away or like what people can bid on, and it's pretty awesome stuff.
Yeah, it's we're like a fully industry supported organization, so it's like a lot of um if it's at the event, it's a lot of raffle, like cool industry, like memorabilia type stuff that you can win at the event, and then we do a an auction at Charity Buzz online that is all like professional meetings, which is really
Hmm.
cool because I'm
Yeah.
like I want to bid on one of those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. And when do you think it'll be? Or do you
I'm
know?
hoping it all depends on finding the venue, but I'm hoping it'll be October 22nd. It's always on a Sunday.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's my brother's birthday.
Oh, well, then it feels like a good day then.
Oh, maybe I'll fly home for it.
Yeah, come on out. My birthday's the 25th, so it's always like an
Oh,
early birthday party
wow.
for me that
Yes,
I
I
just
love
have to
that.
do a lot of work for.
Yeah. Do you make everyone sing you happy birthday?
It has not happened yet.
Okay. I'm putting it out there into the podcast universe that if somebody's there who's
Yeah.
listening in October, they better sing you happy birthday.
It'll be a very loving month then.
Oh. I love that. And then how's the baking going? Are we still doing that?
I sort of paused because I started doing there was a time I did I love doing pumpkin cheesecake. It's my signature thing. And so there was a time during the holidays that I would actually sell them to a small contingency of people, but I started selling them and I would sell like 60 every year, and that's a lot of work. So I burnt myself out. And the problem now is I want to go back, but I used to do it when I was in an office, and I wouldn't eat the things, other people would. And now that I'm working from home, it's just me. So I'm trying not to bake unless I have a reason to bake. But I have a tradition with my nephews that for their birthdays every year, they tell me what kind of theme they want. And then I will bake a cake for each of their birthdays in that theme. So we've really covered the gamut.
This.
Yeah.
Loving this. So what is the craziest cake they've asked you to make?
I mean, there's been some crazy ones. I did an Among Us thing. I don't know if you're familiar with Among Us.
I have no idea what that is.
I couldn't describe it, but it's like this like space astronaut looking character.
Oh, wow.
And it's on I have my own little Instagram for baking by Charmy. And but you see it there. And then my favorite one that I've ever done is my oldest nephew asked me for a Lego Batman cake. And it I was impressed with myself on that one. So, yeah.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
I'm so impressed. Like, even I have, so many friends and stuff who are so talented. And I'm just, anytime I see it, I'm like, dang. I just, do you want to hear my funniest baking story?
Yes.
And this is because it happened during COVID when everyone's like, let's be baker. It was early on in COVID and everyone's like,
when you couldn't find flour anywhere.
Yes. Yes. And I was staying with my friend who has this beautiful house in the Palisades, and she's a huge baker. She's like so good, and like she'll just like again throw things in the batter and it like comes out perfect. I was like, I can do. So she left one day. She had a doctor's appointment or something, and I was like, I'm gonna make some cookies. And like basic. And at the time though, again, I was trying to be healthy. So I was like, okay, let me use I don't really want to, trying to cut down on my gluten. Let me find like a couple alternatives, whatever. And so I found this really great, like kind of healthy cookie recipe. And I was like, I'm going to do this. And by the time she gets home, I'm going to impress her because like no one thinks I can cook on this planet. And so I go through the whole thing and I make the cookies. And there's a couple of things because it's COVID she just didn't have. And because she has like this hugely stocked baking thing. And you watch the Food Network, you watch these people and they're like, yeah, you can substitute this for that and blah, blah, blah. So I go into, because I remember it was cocoa powder. And I went into her little like massive spices area cooking or baking center. And I'm like, what seems like cocoa? Oh, no. And I was like, oh, it seems really good. Cinnamon. I was like, cinnamon would be really good. So I literally, in one batch of cookies, put 2 tablespoons of cinnamon.
Oh my goodness.
And so, but props to her. Her name's Cindy, and I love her because she came home and she's been like so encouraged. She was like, you gotta just try, Jen, just try. And so I was like, look, I made these cookies and I hadn't tried them yet because literally they'd just come out of the oven. So I was like, here, try one. I'm so excited for you to do it. So she ate the whole cookie. And she's like, I think you used a little too much cinnamon. And she's like, but they're good. I'm really proud of you. And this is literally like, I'm not 10. I'm like 35 at the time.
Oh my God.
And she still makes fun of me to this day. Because then I ate it. I was like, this is horrible.
I can't believe you finished a whole cookie.
I know. She's like, well, I didn't want to like knock your confidence. This was like really good of you to let's give it a shot. But she's like, yeah, maybe like don't substitute.
Oh my God, that reminds
Oh.
me when I was I don't even know how old I was. I was probably like 10. My sister's
Mhm.
4 years older than me, and she tried to bake cookies. And cookies are not my strong suit either. They turn out like hockey pucks just
Yeah.
now. But she had accidentally swapped the sugar and salt in the ingredients. And
Boy.
so she took them to my neighbor, my neighbor Ashley, who we're still friends with. She asked her dad to eat the cookie, and he literally like almost lost it because it was so disgusting. The sugar and salt is like insane.
Oh no. Oh no. Oh
But
no.
I had nothing to do with that one. I was just a spectator on the disaster that it was.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, I think people don't understand how hard it is. When you don't have the like innate ability, like thought process, I'm always just like, I can like, improv here
Yeah.
into this, and then it
Yeah.
never goes well.
But
Never.
I think that's the difference between cooking and baking. Baking is a science. Like you have to get all of the ingredients down. In cooking, you can experiment. It's way
Hmm.
more flexible. Do you
Yeah.
cook?
I've tried, and that does not go well for me either. My family will say that because, like, again, being single, I don't cook a lot for myself because it's
Yeah.
like I'm not going to make these elaborate meals and then eat it for a month.
Yeah.
So I usually
Same.
like cook when I'm at home visiting my parents, and to this day they make so much fun of me. It's not even funny. It's like because my brother and sister only live about 10 minutes away from my parents, and they do family dinner once a week, every Sunday night. And so when I'm home, I'm like, I'm gonna cook dinner, and they're like, oh God.
Not
And
this again. Uh-huh.
my brother is a phenomenal cook. And I'm just like, I can do it. So I found this recipe that I was like, I can do this. I believe in myself. And this is literally like 2 months before I moved here. And I followed the recipe to a T, like to a T. My brother refused to come. He wouldn't even come for dinner. He's like, I'll make my own stuff. So my sister, my dad, my mom, and my grandfather lives with my parents. So it's all of us sitting there. And they're like, my sister takes a bite because she's usually always the first to sit down. And she goes,
Oh no.
and she was like, it was like a lemon cream pasta with like chicken. And I put 2 lemons in because I said 2 lemons, but I didn't realize there are different sizes of lemons.
Oh my God.
So literally, so now I can't make anything with lemons because now they just make fun of me for that. Like they love giving me a lot of shit for stuff,
Oh
and
my
it's just
God.
hilarious because I try so hard, and it never works out.
Oh my God, that's so funny. I
My mom
just,
says it's
yeah.
why I'm not married. She's like,
Listen, you just have to find a man that loves cooking.
I know,
That they
right?
exist. My friend Melanie found one. She doesn't do any cooking, and Blake does everything. So
Oh,
they exist. They're out in the world.
okay. DM me.
Right. She's waiting.
I literally last night for dinner I had gummy bears and and some Ritz crackers, and I was like, that's good.
It fills me up in some capacity. Nutrition, not really, but that's really funny.
Oh man, I wish I had that gene. I wish I did.
Yeah. Just the desire. I don't have the desire. I'm like, I'm okay.
Yeah.
I have like 3
yeah.
things that I can cook well, and then that it ends there.
What's your go-to?
I like to do salmon with roasted veggies. So oven
Ooh.
baked salmon with roasted veggies. And that's, I feel
Very
like,
healthy too.
yeah. And my mom, she likes to experiment with different marinades and sauces and stuff. So like the good one I think is like a Dijon mustard on top of the salmon, and then you oven roast it or put it in your air fryer because I'm a single lady and I don't want to do the whole oven thing. But yeah, so I think, there's a couple of things that I can pretend like I can cook, but not really.
I love it.
That's again, I have to find a man who loves to cook, and they will cook dinner and I will make dessert. Done.
There you go. That would be actually the perfect team. I need to find a man who can do it all.
You bring the wine.
I bring the wine. I am really good at wine picking.
Yeah. So everybody has their skill,
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. It's so I mean, we could do this forever.
I know. I know.
But I do want to talk about a little bit because there's so much going on in the industry right now, whether it's
Yeah.
writer strikes, negotiations on all fronts, casting related. Like there's so much going on, and I think we've talked about it before about what we hope for the industry. So I think
Mhm.
like what do you want to leave? What do you want your impact to be?
Mhm. That's a great question. I'm excited to hear your answer to this too, because I honestly, it's one of those industries that, I have not that I think anyone has an easy road, but I've had a lot of knocks. Like I've had a lot of times where I've really put myself out there. I've done a lot to either at a personal sacrifice, financial sacrifice, or whatever. And a lot of times I don't get that back, from the universe or whatnot. So it's like I've had these like knocks, knocks, knocks. And I do believe it all happened for a reason. I don't think I was supposed to have an easy path. Um, However, I think the one thing would love to like change a little bit is bringing a little bit of kindness and humanity back to our jobs, because I know, and I won't, name names, but I've come up under people who have just been really hard to work for, whether they're just not nice people, or they don't know how to run a business, or they don't know how to pay people properly. And I think a lot of that gets lost in what we do, and the fact that we work in Hollywood and it's this shiny industry object that people get so excited that you work for, but you're like, yeah, but I can't pay rent next month. So,
Mm.
um, it's kind of like I hope that if we just had our casting awards, and we had a casting director pass away this year that we did a beautiful tribute to, Simone Barr. And I mean, that tribute was so cool, because I felt it was just like I never got to meet her personally, but to me it seemed like she kind of embodied like this very human, kind person who just cared about, that the actors are people, the directors are people, the producers, and tries to bring, because I think the more we can, as casting directors, become a bit more open and kind and friendly, which I don't know if has always been the case in our industry. um, I think that would be one thing that I would hope I can at least impact a little bit, is that hopefully, if I can just be nicer to people and create a better, more welcoming environment, I think that's ultimately what I would hope to achieve.
Yeah, that's beautiful and
Yeah, what
necessary.
about you?
Um, I think I want to create a space that there is more mentorship coming up through casting. I think that there's a lot of support at the top, and there's support, like CSA created a pathway program for assistants to get training, but I think it's the middle that ends up getting lost in the shuffle.
Yeah.
And so if there would if there's a way to create a space where there's a more nurturing there's an opportunity for casting young casting directors and associates who are looking to make the transition into the casting director position, if there was more of a space that opportunity is there. I think we struggle as the younger generation of casting directors to be able to find our place, because there are casting directors who are part of the high volume offices that are not only doing the big budgets, but also winning Artios awards for micro budget and low budget.
Mhm.
So we're
Yeah.
fighting for opportunities at the top and the bottom, and it shouldn't have to be that
Mhm.
way. So I think that's a big thing for me, is if I can personally make strides to make that transition easier for people for the next generation, because otherwise we are in a very dangerous space within the casting community and the artistry of casting, that as soon as the older generation retire, we are like there's a good potential that the art of casting could die,
Mhm.
because we're not
Mhm.
being nurtured in our own transitions. So I think that's a big thing for me. And it sort of piggybacks on what you said, because this mentality of the gatekeeper, I think it's a bit antiquated now, And so I
Mhm.
think, yes, there are people who reinforce it, but majority of us do not. And so
Yeah.
the treating people with kindness aspect of it, I think eliminates that gatekeeper sort of pop culture reference of who we are as professionals. So that's my hope.
I love that. I love that. And I think we're going to do a whole episode about casting and our state of affairs and everything right now. But I do think that is such a huge, huge thing right now. And I know so many people within casting that are struggling, because I know it's so, a lot of times because of what we do and the fact that the main people we deal with are actors, and actors are outnumber us by quite a bit, that sometimes it gets lost. Like casting also suffers a lot when, certain things aren't acknowledged or accepted. And I agree. I think things need to change, and I love that. I know it will. I know it will change.
We're going to do it. Yeah. There's enough of us that are trying to push that forward that I think if we get the right attention, or the attention from the right people, we could make a difference, and we will make a difference. So hopefully this environment, this industry, this community will become a little bit more welcoming rather than, I don't know what the alternative is. More stringent. I don't know. But yeah. So those are our hopes and dreams for the coming years and generations.
I love it. I love it. And I think we're both going to get our wishes, honestly.
I hope so.
Or our dreams. I don't know if I call it a dream, but I think it'll happen for both of us.
Our goals, our ambitions.
Our
those
goals,
are the things.
yes. There we go. Our goals and ambitions, because I think I just have a good feeling. Not that that means anything, but
it does. It's all with the gut feeling with casting, right?
Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, I think that's a really good place to wrap up.
Yeah. Thank you all for joining us on our first episode. And I think the next one we're going to do is going to be about the current state of affairs. So please tune in and listen up.
Yeah. And before we go, I think we should give our socials out. So my social for my casting company is @Breakaway Casting.
Oh, that's one thing I wanted to ask. Where did that name come from?
Oh, it's a story. So it's pretty much when I started my own company, I was by myself about 5 years ago, and then I took on a partner for a year, and it didn't work out, and it was a rough end for me. And I was going through names because that company name was associated with my personal name, so I couldn't use my name again. Financially for to set up a corporation. So I was like, what's a cool casting name? And so a really good friend of mine was like, I think you're just all about breaking away from Hollywood norms in general. I've never been the Hollywood chick.
Yeah.
So Breakaway came from that. Somebody I think it's actually a song that I was listening to in my car driving down the road when all this was going on, and I was like, I think it was called Break Free. And then I was like, Break Free casting sounds weird. And I was like, what about Breakaway?
I love it. That's a great story. Yeah. Well, yeah. So that's
anyway,
so
Breakaway Casting.
Yes.
What is yours?
Mine is jshermy.casting. That's SHERMY.
Love it.
Yeah.
Yay. And we do have a podcast Instagram @Tipsy Casting.
Yes. Excited.
Well, I think, in the future, I think we're going to post Q&As. We're going to get questions for the podcast. We can put a lot of great content on there so we can make sure that any questions are answered, because we want to be the unfiltered, place to come if actors or producers, directors, or, Joe Schmo walking down the street has a question about casting.
Yeah.
I think we're both sick of people wondering what we do and what actually happens. And I think we're both willing to give unfiltered responses to whatever people want to know.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Yay. Well,
all right.
Here it is.
Episode 1.
Done. Right. I have no cheers. We have nothing to clink.
I know. Cheers.
There you go. Amazing. If you love listening as much as we love sharing, click subscribe on our YouTube channel or find us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Thanks for listening.